thickets of this experience here on Earth, it can feel sometimes like we are lost in the forest, leaving breadcrumbs for ourselves down different trails as markers to map out our understandings. We don't always see everything laid out neatly before us, and it can take quite more than a few times and lessons with laps around the same part of the woods until we feel that we have developed the necessary insight and clarity to enter a new chapter. There is a core marker you can use in this concrete jungle to help gauge the internal and external reality by recognizing the duality embedded within nature. And that is the universal principle known as the law of polarity. In other words, there are two of everything. If we can observe an instinct, emotion, or quality through the lens of having both a positive and negative expression, we can build our discernment in any given circumstance to aid in reclaiming our spiritual sovereignty. So today I'm going to be covering this master key that will not only heighten your discernment and allow you to recognize nuance, but will ultimately lead to your own deliverance. Some of you may even be implementing this already without even knowing it. How this key works is by understanding there is both an exalted and a shadow expression of everything in this entire reality. There is always a completely aligned way to express any particular energy, as well as the shadow side of that very same energy. I'll demonstrate this first by using emotion. Let's take the state of ambition. The spiritual community can have a mixed reception when it comes to certain emotional states, such as this one, ambition. To have ambition is not wrong in and of itself. It's more so what we think that implies. For instance, if we can't accept our own ambition, we can have a hard time coming to terms with an aspect of ourselves and may even try to distance ourselves from this state by suppressing or denying it. That's because both religion and spirituality have deemed ambition to be a sign of an overactive ego. And although we have many blatant examples in the world around us to back this point of view up, let's also keep in mind that religion was specifically designed to keep us in a slave mentality and in need of a shepherd, therefore a sheep. So when we apply the law of polarity to this state of being, we can see that the exalted form of ambition is expressed as passion in action. In fact, ambition is a sign of a healthy solar plexus, an assertion of one's willpower. It's simply the shadow side of ambition that is rather unsavory. This is the form we see in the world around us as a dog-eat-dog, at all costs, cutthroat kind of energy that we were raised into. So applying the master key of polarity to this scenario will show us that, on one side, judgments we hold about what it means to be or have ambition can cut us off from our ability to convey our passion and life force. While on the other side, the shadow side of ambition can come across as real shameless and aggressive, which are hallmarks of an ego unhinged. Side note, if you're currently lacking purpose or passion like many experience along their spiritual journey, try to first examine whether you have any aversions to demonstrating your ambition, as that can keep a lot of our life force frozen. Another emotional state that can frequently keep us twirling in the woods is humility. Humility is actually reverence for the mystery. In its proper place, it is a state of veneration and awe, even if we don't always get to that state the way we would like and have to be humbled into humility. If humility is a companion on your journey, you are in wise company. And yet, to chronically see ourselves as insignificant and incapable of accessing knowing is beyond deceitful. There is nothing enlightening about regarding the human condition as futile and the physical as incompetent to spirit. This is the form we're currently in so that we can come to terms with all of manifestation, as well as heal our judgments around the perception that we have fallen. And no amount of spiritual abuse will correct that. We are absolutely capable of receiving truth to the capacity that this reality offers. And declaring that real wisdom is in knowing nothing is not only dishonest, it's the ego's way of being subversive. There are seasons of knowing and there are seasons of not. Everyone who is evolving will naturally take on their own rhythm of this expansion and contraction. The more one evolves, this rhythm shifts. So when you're confused, you're in a season of expanding. This will bring into question everything you were once so certain about so that you can better know. Therefore, access more truth. Let's examine one more emotional state before we move on to higher order concepts. Our beloved hope. Consciously optimistic. Hope is the anticipation of a positive outcome despite present circumstance. It's powerful and poignant. A person can live off hope alone. It has the power to get us through events when a being has nothing left to draw upon. And yet the shadow side to this deeply poetic state is that it can easily be misused to deny reality. In this form, hope is used to further bury our head in the sand in order to avoid facing our inner doubts. This is a blind desperation that is rooted in denial and delusion. The law of polarity even applies to the shadow itself. We have an exalted shadow and a detriment shadow. The exalted shadow we find anywhere we have admiration. This is our favorite lyricist, artist, or even quantum physicist. This shadow is a reflection of our own hidden power. The attributes and qualities innate within us that we have disowned, are not aware of, or simply don't know how to embody. So any abilities we admire in others are actually latent qualities we hold within ourselves, or else we wouldn't even be drawn to that aspect of the landscape in the first place. We project as much of our beauty onto the world as we do our less favorable qualities, and the beauty we don't take ownership for remains stored in our exalted shadow. And then we have the more well-known form of the shadow in its detriment, the one that holds the less desirable aspects of us we don't want to acknowledge that we even carry, so we don't even know how to connect with so as to integrate, such as jealousy or manipulation. Our unconscious processes and the dynamics we play them out through is exactly what's being addressed through shadow work and why shadow work is so important. There is an organic light and a synthetic or false light. In fact, many things in the world today have an organic and a synthetic expression, such as humanity's organic wounds, which are infused with synthetic means of how we go about resolving them. If that was too cryptic and you'd like me to go in more detail about the organic and synthetic expressions, let me know in the comments, and if enough people are interested, I'll make a video explaining this concept in depth. And the struggle has never been more real than determining between the alchemical philosopher discernment and his twin brother judgment that both constantly get confused for one another. The purpose of this third dimension is meant to cultivate discernment. Spiritual sovereignty cannot be attained without discernment, or we would always be dependent in one form or another on another person's clarity. Judgment, however, is the ego's way of keeping itself intact by protecting its own superiority or lack of understanding. Judgments are one of the main reasons the human experience is in a lower state of consciousness, as they manifest a lot of external denial in every form imaginable that just repeats until we begin to awaken. Judgment takes from our past experiences and superimposes them onto the present verbatim. However, discernment learns from the past experiences, but allows the present to be totally new and work in unknown ways. There are even two forms of darkness. I mentioned non-being in my video, Greed is Not the Problem with Humanity. I even go into depths about the thought form of non-being as the hidden origins of humanity's woes. However, as you can already guess what I'm about to say, there's even two forms of non-being. The shadow side of non-being is what we know as evil, the negating force in creation that violates and usurps. The exalted form of non-being is the undefinable, nurturing emptiness that gives rise to all of life, best known as the Tao. This is the feminine power of the void and the womb of creation. In physics, the Tao is called the frequency domain, and that's an accurate description of this force since the physical realm is emitted from frequency. Even when it comes to the ego itself, we see the positive and negative attributes inherent. The ego is the equipment that allows us to experience ourselves as a focal point of all of creation. It is our identity that allows us to have a separate and unique experience, and contrary to many spiritual teachings, it is the vehicle we came here to learn to love ourselves through. However, when the ego is inflamed, it blocks us from the unity we share with all of creation by over-identifying with its experience of separateness. If the ego goes unchecked, we can become a slave to indulging its limited perspective and molding a tyrannical psyche that perceives any self-correction as a threat to its kingdom. So this would be like a pixel on steroids. I hope this has exalted your discernment. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakenings. See you next time.